some cavalier dismissal by somebody who's, protecting their own paradigm. It needs more research on all fronts. I mean, because I think that there's enough evidence that is now accumulated to suggest that there is a deep history to the human species on Earth. And we're just beginning to really appreciate how much deeper it really is than the conventional models of history. And rather than just waving an arm and dismissing this,
with a skeptical sneer.
With a skeptical sneer, exactly.
But what's interesting is there is accepted scientific models of humanity when you're talking about supervolcanoes, right? Like the supervolcano of 60, 70,000 years ago.
Mount Toba.
Yeah, I mean, they pretty much accept that wiped out of the vast majority of human beings on Earth. And why is the supervolcano hypothesis so easily accepted, but yet the asteroidal impact, I mean, both of them are real events, both of them are historically documented. In fact, we've never watched a supervolcano take over the world, but we've seen asteroids hit other planets. We've actually watched Shoemaker-Levy, like you were talking about before.
Bombarding Jupiter, unbelievable
bigger
event.
impact than the planet Earth itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Boom!
So, yeah, and actually more than 20 impacts. Each one of them would have wiped out all life on Earth if that object had hit the Earth. Yeah, so it's a very another thing we were talking about underwater structures, but let's also consider the possibility, and again, John Anthony West's work is important here. Let's also consider the possibility that we have misidentified a number of structures that are standing in plain view, like the Great Sphinx. Egyptology, read any Egyptological text, any encyclopedia actually, they will tell you that thing was put there by a specific pharaoh, Pharaoh Khafre of the 4th dynasty, round about 2500 BC. That is not a fact. That is an opinion. But it's presented as a fact. There is not a single inscription that relates the Sphinx to that pharaoh, not a contemporary inscription, not one dating from 2500 BC. In fact, there's nothing at all. It's just the assumption, because it's close to a pyramid, which they assume the same pharaoh built, again on the absence of evidence, that the Sphinx must have been built by them. But John Anthony West was the first to see that actually when we look at the Sphinx, we're looking at a highly eroded stone object. And that erosion is very odd. And that's why he brought Professor Robert Schoch, professor of geology from Boston University, to Giza in 1992 to look at the Sphinx and say, what actually caused this weathering on the Sphinx? And Schoch immediately saw it. What caused it was exposure to a very long period of heavy rainfall. And no such rains have fallen in Egypt in the last 5,000 years, but they did fall during the Younger Dryas. We had a prolonged rainout from this comet impact as that ice cap was pulverized and a massive amount of ice water was thrown up into the upper atmosphere. A prolonged rainout, which could have been the cause of the erosion on the Sphinx.
Now, what has occurred new? What discoveries have been discovered in the last year? Like, what is new that we can look at?
In terms of archaeology, there's not much new. Göbekli Tepe at the moment is in deep freeze. It's right 30 miles from the Syrian border. There's been massive unrest in Şanlıurfa, which is the main town. Archaeology is very difficult for them to carry on there. It's basically just frozen.
So they just sort of stopped.
They've just kind of stopped, And in fact, there's an amazing number of these sites. Another site I visited for Magicians of the Gods was Baalbek in the Lebanon. Absolutely stunning site. And again, I'm convinced that site is nuanced. It is, yes, there is a Roman temple there, but they put that temple there because the site was sacred long before, and there's this incredible U-shaped megalithic wall which surrounds Baalbek, which does not appear to have any connection to the Roman structure at all. Again, that's an area which is subject to tremendous unrest and difficulty, and it's difficult for archaeologists to proceed. But just in 2014, they made a huge new discovery at Baalbek of a buried